Hi there, it's Rich here with another one of my fast and fun videos, and this is my final video of 2020. And in this video I'm going to take a look back at the running costs of all my 5 90s and noughties modern classic cars, and I quite often get asked about the running costs of all these cars, and this video is going to take a look at that. We'll take a look at exactly what I've spent in 2020 to demonstrate that actually, if you take into consideration that poison word called depreciation, running these classic cars actually isn't as expensive as you may think. In the video, I'm going to look at what I bought, what I've sold during 2020, together with servicing and repair costs, insurance, road tax, and also values. So, let's start with the ins and outs from 2020. So the first movement in the year was I had a Mark 1 TT 3.2 VR6 DSG, and I ended up selling that purely because I just felt at the time I wasn't getting through all my 4 cars enough, wasn't using them enough. Obviously we had COVID as well, which made it more difficult, but I ended up selling that in the summer, made a really good profit, 4-figure profit on that, and that shows you where the Mark 1 3.2 values are going. They're certainly climbing. So I made a healthy profit on that car, and I wasn't intending to replace it. The only car that I'd looked at was a Citroen Saxo VTS that I would own many years ago, and from the late 90s and early noughties, and that was the true epitome of really lightweight, really revvy little engine, front wheel drive hot hatch, and I drew a line under that because having looked for months and months and trawled the ads, there was just nothing that was standard and modified that I could find. Numbers were really low. So I had to come a little bit more modern, and I think I've absolutely nailed it with one of the great hot hatches for me is the Renault Sport Clio 182. So I bought that in September this year, and getting to know that over the last few months, and tend to get lots of use in 2021 with that car. The other car that left was I had an old 4x4 Mitsubishi Pajero. The great thing about these Shogun Pajero imports 4x4s is that it was I'd owned it for 5 years. I'd only paid about $1,500 for it. I ended up selling it for high hundreds as an MOT failure. I'd had it for 5 years. I lost a little bit on that car, but that's all I lost, and that's because the huge money that these pull for just for spares and repairs. And as a replacement, I just downsized very slightly and went for that Shogun Sport, and that's really our everyday utility car that we need for the family and for the dogs and horses and other types of things. So they were the ins and outs. We started the year with 6 cars, we've ended the year with 6 cars. The only car that's not been part of this discussion is my Mercedes C350E plug-in hybrid, and the reason for that is because that is a lease car and it's not owned by myself, so I've excluded that from this video. So they're the ins and outs. So let's take a look now at the individual cars and how much they've cost throughout 2020. Just start with the Mitsubishi Shogun Sport. It's now 15 years old, this car, when I picked it up in the summer. It doesn't owe me anything at all, although the Pajero 4x4 I had before, which I need to include in this, that cost me a couple £100 for some new tyres at the start of the 2 new tyres at the start of the year, and the MOT, the failed MOT that it had as well. So a couple £100 there, but otherwise nothing at all has been spent on the Shogun Sport, and it's done about 3,000 miles since the summer, of which actually 1,000 miles of that was in 1 week going up to the Isle of Mull in Scotland. The second car is the Mark 1 MX-5 from the mid-90s. This has done what did I have a look at here? 2,000 miles, so not many miles considering we did about 600 in 1 day, trying to circumnavigate his way around the whole border of Wales during the summer. Had a great time with the MX-5, cracking little car. That's cost me this year the most. That was because I had a problem with the engine cutting out early in the new year. That ended up being a fuel pump, and with a lot of labour on top of that and a few other bits and pieces, £700 for that, plus about £50 for underseal and a couple of weekends effort for me to get under the car and rust proof it as best I can. Then, sleeping in its pyjamas, is the SL500. This has had a really quiet year. I think only about 1,000 miles, unfortunately. It's not cost anything, which is great, because it's been a really expensive car to look after over the sort of 4.5 years I've owned it. However, this year's been an exception, no cost at all, because of that little mileage, and that'll stay off the road until the spring. Here when I come back. Next up is the Porsche Boxster, also again put away for the winter. In its pyjamas. The Porsche Boxster's got more miles in this year, 5,000 miles about, that we did in the Boxster S. And this one cost me £340 for a service in the autumn before I hibernated it away. So that had the full service with a few other bits and pieces. That is due some got a leak on one of the crossover pipes, coolant crossover pipes, which before it comes out in the spring, that's got to go back to the Porsche independent garage and get that done, and I'm looking at about a £450 repair for that, and then that'll be back on the road sometime early in the spring. And then finally the Renault Sport Clio 182. I've only owned this for about 3 months. It's done about 1,000 miles. And the only thing this owes me is 30 quid for a headlight polishing kit for Moto Glim. Next, let's take a look at the insurance then. So we insure all 5 cars with one insurance provider, Aviva. The cars, I've got limitations on mileage ranging from 3 up to 6,000 miles. In fact, I think the Porsche is 8,000 actually. Excess for each is 350, apart from the SL and the Boxster S, which carry 550 excess. And then we pay on a monthly basis, and it's exactly £99. So £1,200 for the year, which I think on these modern 5 Classics is actually quite reasonable. The only thing it does grate at me, I suppose, is with regard to no claims discount. And I believe it should be, as no claims is about me as an individual, it's about an owner, it's about a driver. You should be able to apportion that across the cars that I drive, and you just can't do that. However, Aviva are pretty good. They do link your policies together, and you do get discounts for multiple cars. Next, we'll take a look at road tax, or what we all know as road tax. There's a couple of really important points here. I never have all my cars on the road at the same time, because otherwise the road tax would be too expensive. So I pay on a monthly basis. And that payment, at the end of the month, I have a notification comes up on my phone that says what car you're going to sawn, I take off the road, and what you're going to put on the road. So on the end of the month, the last day of the month, I will then sawn any cars that I don't want to use the following month. And it is literally 2 minutes, and I've sawn that car. And then the following day, on the 1st of the month, that is when I will tax the other cars if they're not already taxed. Again, it's 2 minutes per car. And that way I can switch from cars from month to month, and it's a really simple, really quick and really fast system that you use using DVLA's website. The other really important thing to remember is the date March 2006, and that's the date with EU legislation that any high output or polluting car with regards to CO2 exhaust, the road tax that you pay almost doubles between pre-March 2006 and post-March 2006. So let me explain. On my Porsche Boxster S, I pay £28 per month. If it was 2006 or post-March 2006, that would almost be double. It would be nearly £50 per month. And that's the massive jump because of that particular date. It's no coincidence that all my 5 cars are pre that date, because that saves a whole chunk of money, several £100, when you've got multiple cars that you're trying to put road tax on. So let's just have a quick look at where I think we are with regard to values of these cars and valuations, where they've trended. Obviously, I only bought the Shogun Sport in mid-2020, so that car, like most 4x4s, Japanese in particular, they get down to 2 or 3k in value, and they generally sit there bumbling along for year after year after year. there's always a market for 4x4s, especially in the more rural communities. I'll use this, and most people use them till they fall apart. I'll use this until it's just beyond repair. I can't see those going anywhere. MX-5 Mark 1s during 2020. I've tracked price of Mark 1s and A's, they're called. They're a little bit all over. You can still get them at the hundreds, but if you do, they're going to be prone to lots and lots of rust and corrosion problems, which just eat away at these cars. They did have large numbers. They are starting to reduce in numbers, but there's still too many about to start to skyrocket values of these in the future. But I do expect to get them more and more sought after. Very, very slow, steady growth over the years I see with this. SL500s, the R230s, absolutely rock bottom. They've got to such a point now. Probably you can pick them up for as little as 5k. I just can't see them going anywhere else now. The previous generation, the R129s that were from the 90s, they've really started to take off in the last few years, and I can see the R230s following suit, albeit it's only for the long term. Again, I can't see any short-term gains in these. I think they'll continue to bumble along, being really affordable at the bottom of the curve. Porsche Boxster S, the 987 Gen 1, but it's the second generation Boxsters. Again, these 987s, the Boxsters, the S's in particular, they've been sat at around 10k now for years, and they don't seem to be dropping anymore. I think they've absolutely saturated. I don't see price increases either. I just see, other than cyclic during the year, when obviously convertibles are more sought after in the summer. But I just see them 986s are Boxster S 986s in good condition are still fetching sort of 6k. I can't see values changing on these. I think they'll just continue to plateau at around that generic 10k seems to be the real floor for those 987s. And then the final car is the Renault Sport Clio 182. And this is one car, I think there's absolutely, these are starting to go up. The unmodified ones in particular, I think there's real strength there in the market for these. And I can see these hopefully being quite a shrewd buy for myself this year. And I see these starting to pick up during 2021 as numbers reduce of the standard spec ones. And I think prices for this will firm up when people realise what an iconic car this is, being so lightweight with that 2-litre normally aspirated engine. So let me summarise the costs then now. Let's add all those costs up, and if we look at all the servicing and maintenance and repair of the cars, that was £1,500. I add on my £1,200 for insurance and about £800 for road tax, and that's because I've only got sort of the 2 or 3 taxed at any given time. Comes out at about 3.5k it's costing me to run these 5 modern classic cars. Now, it might sound a lot, but that does include road tax, it does include the insurance, and the one thing I haven't put into the equation is depreciation, or appreciation as in some cases. And I compare that to if I'd have decided just to buy a new Ford Focus, and I quickly googled earlier that a new Ford Focus is about 20-something K. You might get a discount, so let's say you get it for 20k, a brand new Ford Focus. The average depreciation of a new car in that first year is somewhere between 20 and 35%. If you're very optimistic and you only lose 25% of that value and you can get it for 20k, it's still only going to be, you're still going to be worth 15k. You'll have lost 5,000. That's not, servicing will be probably free or very, very low. Your tax will probably be part of the bundle. You'll still have to insure it. And I've done all this for 3.5k for 5 cars. And when people ask me, well, how can you afford it? I say, because I'm quite shrewd. I try to buy the right cars, and all my cars carry risks. They've all got over 70,000 miles, between 70,000 miles and 115,000 miles. They're all at least 15 years old. But they're all special to drive. They all make me feel good. And for me, they've all cost me less than it would do to run one Ford Focus for a year. I think the biggest danger when you run an older car is to let faults accumulate, and that for me is one of my key principles that I always make sure I do, is that if I know a vehicle is carrying a problem, I know it's got an issue, I will address it. It might not be immediately, but I will have a plan to address it. I think cars like this get very expensive if you have faults and you try to drive on and you leave them and you get multiple faults, and they get to such a level, so many issues and faults, they just become almost unfixable and they just don't make economic sense. So try to keep on top of the faults will definitely help. So that's it for 2020. I'm taking a month off now for videos. I'll be back in mid-January for another year of running these classic cars. Whether it's these, whether I change, whether I evolve and sell some and buy some, I don't know. But at the moment, the plan is I'll be back in a month's time, mid-January, with another video. I really hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's been enlightening to see what it's cost me to run these cars. If you have enjoyed it, please give me the thumbs up. Please drop me a comment, ask any questions you've got, and I look forward to doing more videos for you next year. If you really enjoyed it, please subscribe and stay tuned for the next video in 2021.